Welcome back to another episode of the Startup Junkies Podcast. My name is Matthew Ward, and I am on the Startup Junkie team. Today, I have with me my usual co-hosts, Chef Amerine and Caleb Talley. How are y'all doing?
Glad to be here. Happy Friday.
Great. Rainy Friday afternoon.
And today, we have with us our guest, Heather Nelson. Heather Nelson is president of Seal Solar, the solar design and installation firm she co-founded with Josh Davenport in 2012. A corporate lender for some of the nation's largest banks for nearly 2 decades, she has helped Seal Solar become one of Arkansas's leading solar businesses. Today's team of 46 certified local professionals offer turnkey solutions to homeowners, businesses, government entities, and farmers across Arkansas. Heather, thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
So we want the dirt and the details and the origin story. So start when you were working for the dark side in banking and then kind of take it from there.
Well, that is such a fun story. First of all, thanks for having me. This is a thrill. I'm a big fan of especially Jeff's, and so I'm really appreciative that you guys would invite me on. So thank you.
Well, we're glad to have you.
Fun story. My first job out of college was for an entrepreneur. And one of the things I learned really fast was that you really need a strong banking relationship or you're just not going to make it. And so it didn't take me long to figure that out. And then there was an opening for a management training program at the old Nations Bank, which is before they bought Bank America and became Bank of America. And it was the one that Hugh McCall founded. And so if you know anything about banking, you know Hugh McCall. And so you either love him or hate him, and I love him and wanted to be Hugh McCall. And So I applied to the management training program. I had no experience in banking. I slept through finance in college at University of Arkansas. I said to him, I go, the truth of the matter is I would love this opportunity, but I have no experience in banking. I'm probably not what you're looking for. And I slept through finance. And so he said to me, we can teach you banking, but we can't teach drive and determination and the business development skills that you've learned at your first job out of college. And he said, so you're exactly what we need. And I thought that was super nice, but I still didn't think I was going to get the job offer, and I did. And so my goal was to work in banking for 5 years and learn everything I could. And then I was going to go run somebody else's company or start my own. And what happened was I just fell in love with it. I loved everything about it. I got to meet Hugh McCall. I would sit eating cereal because I was so poor. I would eat cereal I had no furniture and a trunk, and I would take big policy manuals back when everything was paper for the young whippersnappers on here. And I would take a binder home, for a week, and I would just read through, credit policy, operations, security, because I really just didn't know anything. And I just fell in love with it. And so I got a great opportunity thanks to Robert Burnett, John Dominic, Rusty Guerra, and a whole crew over in corporate lending, corporate strategies at the time at Bank of America. And they thought I had something. That's what Robert Burnett said to me, like, kid, you got something. He's kind of like the last of the old John Waynes in corporate lending. I bet he does have a bottle of scotch in his desk. And they kind of handpicked me out of the retail side, and I hadn't been out of the management training program long. And so I got to work on the biggest deals in the state for the largest private and public entities as a credit analyst. And then I got moved around a bunch, but they just, they gave me this great opportunity. And once you're kind of in that world, it's just a whole other level. It's not that one area of banking is better or worse than another, but it certainly gave me exposure to big deals, to multi-bank deals, to IPOs. It just gave me a different view of the world and of business and of lending. And I will be forever grateful to my death for that opportunity. And it ended up that U.S. Bank, years and years later, U.S. Bank offered me an opportunity to have my own corporate lending, large commercial portfolio. No other woman in the state of Arkansas had a large corporate portfolio. And the guys all said, we don't want you to leave, but if you don't take this opportunity, we'll kill you. And so I took it. And so I went over to US Bank and I did that for years. And then after 2008, I stayed in it until 2012 though. But I wasn't having a lot of fun. That's just the truth of the matter. And I guess I was having my mid-year burnout and I thought, my life is over. I'm not having fun anymore at what I do. And I'm going to go back to school and I'm getting my PhD and I'm going to go teach college and make my college professors' dreams come true. And in the process of making all those plans, I got approached by Josh's dad. We were having lunch one day and he was getting some free banking advice, as this happens to every banker in America. You buy them lunch and they'll give you a bunch of free advice. And he spent the whole time talking about this crazy idea that Josh had. And I'd spent 15 minutes with Josh in my entire life. And somewhere between bites of salmon, I said, who's going to run this thing? Doesn't Josh work for you? And he said, you are. And I said, the hell I am. I got a plan. And then the rest is history. So I loved banking and I could talk forever about the great experience that was. I don't get to talk about it very much anymore because everybody wants to talk about solar and entrepreneurship, but there's a lot of heart in those years of corporate lending that were some of the best years professionally in my life and some of the most professional growth of my life.
Well, catch us up on Seal Solar. I mean, you've had a great run at it. You made that transition over to Seal Solar, and so give us that and all of the last 8 years.
That's been great. We started out in the energy efficiency. So the original business plan exploded about 6 weeks to 6 months in, you could say. At the time, the Clinton Foundation had all these different arms. A lot of that's changed for a lot of reasons and, political and otherwise, and you can part and parcel that. But the heart of the matter is at one time they were incubating some nonprofits through various areas of the foundation. And so inside the Clinton Climate Initiative, which was an offshoot of the Clinton Foundation, they were testing an energy efficiency nonprofit and trying to see if it had legs. And they had determined, because they are a nonprofit, that they needed a for-profit to partner with because of the way they can accept and receive money and contracts and different things. And so they had been looking for an energy efficient contractor here in Arkansas for a year that really they meshed with and hadn't had any luck. And one of their key people bumped into Josh at a nonprofit event, got to talking, had similar interest. And so they kind of got Josh jazzed up on energy efficiency. And so he went and got certified, but it kind of dragged out. Josh wasn't too excited to take a leap necessarily. He was trying to talk his dad into doing it under his dad's firm. His dad was kind of risk averse. And so then this crazy woman has lunch with his dad, and his dad, there's a sucker born every minute. She'll do, So we jokingly say that Josh got sicked onto me by his father, which is not exactly a lie. So, because Josh had only worked for his dad. And so here he's got one of the brightest minds I've ever been around. He's got one of those firecracker brains. Have you been around those people that they're just constantly, but he needed somebody to catch a couple of those and figure out what to do with them. And so, unbeknownst to me, I had that skill. And so we ended up being a really great match where he kind of had he had this initial idea and he kind of saw something where it could go. And then I kind of built the business up underneath him. And so I kind of put the foundation in place and all of that. And I really thought I was going to do that, just kind of getting teed up. And then I was kind of being greedy. I thought I took a big chunk of the company and said, yeah, I'm going to be here a few months, get you set up. And then I'm going to head to Fayetteville and keep on my path. And what happened was I fell in love with what we were doing, and I was needed, and that really speaks to all my love languages. And so it just, codependency was born.
You had a Hotel California moment. Hotel California moment. You could check in, but you could never leave.
That is the best. And that's exactly the way it was. I mean, and I think that does happen a lot with partners is if you don't have codependent personalities, entrepreneurship can develop that in you. And I've talked about this before, that the great thing about entrepreneurship is that it will highlight and show you all these gifts and all these passions and ideas and things about yourself and your abilities that you never knew. But it will also show you the deepest, darkest, ugliest things about yourself that you have spent a lifetime shoving into every crevice and corner, saying, Lord Jesus, please don't let anybody ever see that or know that about me. And that's, I think, the beauty of entrepreneurship, and why a lot of entrepreneurs go to counseling and personal coaching, because it's an undoing of us, because you're building something, you're birthing something. Yeah. And if you're trying to do that in collaboration with others, especially a partnership where you're both, risking everything together and building everything together. And for Josh and I, we didn't pay any, we weren't earning any money for forever. And, all those things, then it does bring out stuff in you that you don't know. And so I think there's just a lot of things about entrepreneurship that are fascinating that we don't talk about enough. And I think how many entrepreneurs it throws into counseling and for mental health issues is a really fascinating concept, and personal coaching and all of that. So, and that, I spent 3 years in intense counseling. Started in 2016, partly because of entrepreneurship. There was something that happened at work, and by the next day I had an appointment, and I spent, 1 year going every week for a year. And then it was every 2 weeks. But it brought out stuff that I needed to deal with. And Josh has had his own journey in that. And I think I've talked a little bit about it and written a little bit about it, but it's something we need to talk about more. And that was the best blessing of all of this, was the fact that it did unearth all that.
Well, there's for sure
no. Probably not your normal answer to that question.
No, but listen, there's nowhere to hide in entrepreneurship. You can't hide out. It's going to expose it all, just because by nature of the process. There's no doubt about it. But I've been hogging all the time, and I know Caleb and Matthew have got some questions there they definitely want to ask you.
Well, just to follow up on on that topic. As the entrepreneurial journey brings so much to the surface, there's also the opportunity to lean on strengths and experiences you already have. And I know from doing my homework that you are a storyteller and passionate about storytelling, and you have experience in banking. How have you leaned on, question 1A, your passion for storytelling, and 1B, your experience in banking, and applied that to your entrepreneurial journey?
Those are both great questions. And I appreciate the first one even more than the second one, because I'd like to talk about that kind of stuff more. So on the storytelling question, there's a lot of depth there, and I'm a big talker, so I'm gonna really put a piece aside, because I think there's a whole how that got unearthed in me that's a story into itself. But how I've used that skill set is in recognizing that we had to tell the story of our company, and in part of that process that we had to tell the story of our client, because especially when you're talking about a new industry. So in Arkansas, whether you're talking about energy efficiency or now renewables, this is a new industry. So we are a new and emerging industry that's also acting as a disruptor to the largest and longstanding monopoly that's left. The utility sector. And so there's going to be a lot of strong opinions and or no knowledge or education around what we're doing. And so we're going to have to take the mindset of a teacher and say, we're going to educate first on who we are and what we do, and how what we do can change your life and save you money and deliver an ROI for you and keep your family safe and secure during storms. And so if we educate and do all of that right, then the sale comes. And so that's how we train our team, and that's how we train new employees when we onboard them. And then certainly when we're out in the public telling our story is education. Everything else will take care of itself, because for us, we have to take a mindset of, we need our competitors to do well. Because if something happens with your HVAC firm, then you call another HVAC firm. If something happens with your solar, Well, I knew that was fuzzy math. I knew that was voodoo economics or whatever they want to say. So because, you know, in a state of 3 million people, we have less than 3,000 net meters, meaning that's less than 3,000 systems. So we have a long way to go. And so we have to take a posture of education. Well, the best person to educate too is people's stories. And so what happened was I was going to Haiti a lot. And one of the things that I was learning down there is the power of you can sell things that are made in Haiti to people all around the world when you tell the story behind the item. And so I just started, I got home from one of those trips, and it was actually where it all kind of started clicking was we had been working on a year to take a farmer solar, and it had been a battle, David and Goliath for sure, between the farmer and the utility, and we're caught in the middle because we've designed the system and we're going to install it. Long story short, we finally got it through the system a year into it, and I pitched the story to Arkansas Business, and I said, I got a story, and I didn't pitch Still Solar, I pitched the farmer. You got a 5th generation farmer who wants to go solar, he needs to save money, he's trying to save his farm, and he's had to do battle with the utilities. So I pitched them a David and Goliath story, not because I'm a Christian, but just because that's the way entrepreneurship feels sometimes. And so they bid it hook, line, and sinker. And then we ended up on the cover with the farmer. And this is, 5 years ago. It was a game changer. And so what it did, the storytelling is what I knew to be true. And then what ended up proving out was just, we have to spend more time telling the stories of our clients, because nobody cares what Heather Nelson thinks, but Heather Nelson's client, they really care about that because that's relatable to them. So I think storytelling is probably one of the most powerful parts of our business, and something that 8.5 years in, I'm still not satisfied. Like I want us to do more and better storytelling. I'm always, pushing our team to go, how can we come at this a different way? We need more, because I think it's the best way to educate the public is to use their neighbors to do it.
That's really the only way. It's the only way to make that emotional connection really stick, to grab someone's attention and to draw them in. So that's a great insight.
I think so too. I believe that. And I also believe that storytelling is as old as time. I mean, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth, not to make this, but it goes back to that. And so story is so ingrained in us. I mean, no matter what your religions or beliefs, I mean, everything you believe has been passed down to you via story. And so I think that's just, storytelling's become this buzzword. When I first started doing it was before kind of all these books and stuff. And I thought I created it. I thought I was some brainiac and I was the last to know probably, but now it's out there and everybody it's kind of become a buzzword, which kind of makes me a little nauseous because I don't know that everybody uses it or is thinking about it in the same way. And so I'm really passionate about it. But I think it's just the heartbeat of what we do, because our team has to believe. I mean, working for an entrepreneur, I mean, you have to believe in something bigger than you to want to work for an entrepreneur and all of that. So that's been a really big part of us. And so I feel like I brought that to our story. And on the banking side, it's just been, you can take the girl out of the bank, but you can't take the banking out of the girl. What David Russell said, that we can teach you, once you learn it, it's really great. And I say to people, I'm very honest about my story about that. I took finance as a summer course because I hated it and I was bored. But I'm honest about that because I think especially when I talk to students at U of A, because I say, the thing that you don't like today that is boring may be the thing that you need more than anything 10 years from now in your career. So, don't ever stop being curious, and don't ever, stop wanting to learn something new, because I could have been like, I'm not going to do that, or I could have not wanted to admit that I didn't know something. And so here I was, and I said, I don't know how to do this. I don't think I'm good at it. And, they kind of poured into me. And I had skills I didn't even know I had. And a passion for it, because underwriting is fun. I mean, don't show this to my original bankers, because I underwrote our first debt deal. I underwrote. I literally sent them and said, these are the ratios that need to be on this. These are the performance ratios. These are, so it's kind of a joke that I did that. But you can take it's still, before we send stuff to our bank or partners or anything, I'm thinking about that. And I still today, and we have a great VP of finance, and we have a great COO, but I still kind of head up the vendor relationships when they're talking about credit or anything, and our banking and our accounting and stuff, because I have a passion for it still, but also, I'm good at it. I mean, but you can't have all these years of experience. And so, but what I'm trying to do is, I don't want to be the only one. So I'm bringing our team in and saying, and these are some things to think about and stuff. And so I hope that if you talk to Tyler or Stefan, they would say, Heather's got us in the room, and she's helped open our eyes to things and questions we should ask. And I'll tell you, our finance team, when they deal with our bank, they come up with things that I've never even thought of. So now they're surpassing me, and which is great. I mean, I love that. I want people who are way smarter than me around me. So they're teaching me stuff, and I love that. But yeah, I think it was really important for us that I had that background. And I think I added that. That was a lot of the value that I added in the beginning, and certainly even still now. I think every entrepreneur needs to understand the banking relationship. You've got to, even if it's just your checking and a revolving line of credit, but having a banker, we had a really rough year one year, and we've only had one that scared us. And, I sat down with our banker and said, this is what happened. This is what we did. And this is what would come. And we had this track record with them, and they said, we believe in you, and kept on going. And, it was a thrill to impress them with every quarter, and, and we bounced back, and it felt brutal to us, but they were they walked with us and believed in us. And so I think because we'd worked so hard on that relationship, that was critical for us, that might have been a death blow for another business that didn't have a strong banking relationship, and then they had a bad year, and then where do you go? So I think it was helpful.
No, it was great. Really good insights. Matthew, over to you, buddy.
Yeah. So Heather, something I would be curious to get your thoughts on is, one, being comfortable with uncertainty, and maybe what role that's played with running Seal Solar.
Well, I'm probably scared every day. So I think that I think one of my greatest gifts is that I am insanely curious, and I am completely unafraid to say I don't know something, or I need to work on something, or whatever. And I haven't always been really good at that, but I'm better at that today, as I almost near 50 than I've ever been. And I think that that's something that I try to represent and instill in our team, because I think that we've got a world that says you have to be a subject matter expert on everything at 22. And that's just the biggest lie ever. And so I think that I'm very open and transparent with my partner and with my team that, hey, there's risk here, and there's, or that makes me nervous, or let's talk through that, or, there's risk reward. We need to walk through that. But yeah, I mean, I'm just as insecure as the next person, and have to work on that all the time. But also I try just to be brave, because as I teach our team, because we have a lot of young people that make up our team, so they don't have all the life experience or professional experience that I do. And it's funny when they get nervous about meeting somebody or whatever, and I go, they put their pants on one leg at a time, just like you. And I probably say that around the office more than anything else. And that's because it's just a reminder to say, whether you're walking into, Warren Stevens or Jeff Amerine, or, who I was nervous to meet him in person, even though we've run in the same circles for years. I mean, he's an intimidating force. Or whatever it is that, those people.
I have to laugh at that a little bit, but.
No, you shouldn't. You shouldn't. But just like Caleb said, Heather, they're just intimidated. I mean, that's what the joke of the century. But The truth is that we are, we are intimidated by other people. And so we just have to, look at them and go, they're just like you and I. And then you have to be brave and start that conversation. I walked right up to Jeff at the Business of the Year Awards. I was like, there's Jeff, and hey, and just, you have to put yourself out there. And so I hope that I'm honest that I'm insecure about a lot of things, and certainly from one day to the next, and look at all the different businesses that we're starting and in the process of doing. But I'm also saying, let's be brave, and let's just, let's just keep looking, take the next step.
Well, the interesting thing about, to follow up a little bit on that, is that level of insecurity. It's not that you're not self-assured, but that fear of things not going well. Man, that's a powerful motivator. I mean, I think that's one of the things that keeps entrepreneurs hungry and keeps them ahead of the issues, because they know that they can probably figure it out and can do it. But that fear, that uncertainty, is what makes you good. I think those are the things. It's like that fear impulse is so primal. That's what kept the human species alive, because they didn't know what was around the next corner. I think that's a powerful thing for entrepreneurs to harness and to realize. Something we used to say when I was in the military, I spent a short amount of time before I got injured in special operations. And they'd say the trick to this game is seeing how far you can push yourself into that pain cave without taking counsel of your fears. And it's really true. It's the same thing in entrepreneurship. And so I think that's really, I appreciate your candor on that. And it's really a good point, because I think we all feel that. It's like, people, how often do you feel like an imposter? Someone asked me that was a little more junior in their career. And I said, every job I ever had, every position, I felt, I don't know that I'm worthy of this. I'm not sure I can figure it out. But you do, just because you're willing to grind through it.
That's right. And I think that I tell those stories on myself too, Jeff, because I think people, especially we're older, and I think people look at us and they look at our resume, and I mean, even listening to Matthew read that bio, I cringe. I mean, I'm like, oh my gosh. I mean, sometimes I feel an imposter in my own life and my own daily life. And I think that we have to talk about that, because so many young people are watching us, just like we were watching. And when I think of my career, I mean, I name names. I say this person and this person. I name, Russ, David, and all them, because they emulated, and I would stand at Robert Burnett's in his doorway with a credit write-up, 50 pages. And I would literally have sweated through all of my clothes. Just my bones were shaking. So going, oh my gosh. And when Robert Burnett hears that story, and he hears me tell that story, and I still do, he just laughs it off like, that's crazy. And I'm like, you are, and he is still today, probably one of the brightest, underwriting commercial strategy minds in Arkansas. He's just, and he's just stayed with Bank of America. And now he's like over all the Mid-South and stuff. And nobody knows him. He's just this quiet, powerhouse. But he is just brilliant. And so I think that, I share those stories because I think that people need to know that people that look like they have it all or whatever, we're putting our pants on one day at a time, and we're having to bulldoze through and just be brave. I mean, that was my word year, was Lionheart. Yeah. Because I knew I needed to be really brave that year, and so I had it written on a key.
Yeah,
Haitian Creole.
We all face the same gravity, right?
That's right. That's right.
It's a gravitational pull is the same on all of us, regardless of where we are in our career or what we're doing. Well, so great inputs, great insights. I think it's really helpful for our audience to understand it, because you've had such an interesting career. But now it's your point to kind of cast the vision for what comes next for Seal Solar. What does that look like the next 5-ish years? I mean, I know you all are big dreamers and you're not constrained by what people typically do. What comes next? To the extent that you can tell us.
Well, NDA confidentiality agreement. No, just teasing. Well, we recently did this. We kept it quiet for a while, but we actually did it back in December. But we took a sizable ownership interest in Evolve Auto, which is the only electric vehicle dealership in the Mid-South. And we did that. It's based in North Little Rock. And we did that because we really believe in this ecosystem that is being talked about in big dreaming arenas where they're talking about what the future could look like. And so we know that an electric vehicle buyer, even today, that same buyer is the one who's going to buy solar, who's going to buy a Tesla Powerwall or any type of battery storage, and of course going to want an EV charger for their home or business. So it just seemed like a natural progression for us, but also, we're working with, we're already talking with lenders across the nation about how do you finance an ecosystem, because right now you have to finance an electric vehicle and you can finance your solar and storage and EV charger all together, but how do we add that EV in there to where it's almost like my dream is they call it an ecosystem loan. I think that would be really cool, but I'm talking to my banking cohorts and peers and former people that I worked with every day. I'm having banking conversations, really trying to say, here's how you could underwrite that. I mean, I'm kind of going, here's some ideas. I don't know what your credit policy book looks like today, but here's some ideas. But we're also talking to a lot of national firms. I think that, LoanPal is a really, interesting, it's fascinating that they've moved into Arkansas and opened an office here. They're doing some really progressive things around financing. We hope they may come up with some type of solution too. But also, just the future of Powerwalls. What we saw happen in Arkansas last year around Tesla Powerwalls. We sold 2 the year before. We sold 64 last year. At this point, we're selling Powerwalls with 1 out of every 3 systems. So that whole idea of people saying, yes, do I want to save money? Absolutely. Most people don't come to us and say, I want to save the planet. I just got to be honest with you. Most people come to us because they say, I want to return on my investment, which means we've done our content well because we keep telling people there's a great ROI with solar. And they say, I want control. And so last year was a great test case. In March, we thought, could we be losing our company? And by, May, June, we were like, what in the world's happening? And so what happened was we repositioned our storytelling and our content around control and security, and people bid, because in a year where nobody had control over anything, now all of a sudden somebody's saying, we can save you money and we can give you some control and some security. Where do I sign up? And of course, we were not pitching that to people who had been furloughed. And,
Sure.
We had to really think about our messaging. Sure. But the truth of the matter is that, there were a lot of firms that survived all this, that got PPP money, and then they had to figure out, how do I invest that PPP money?
Sure.
Because maybe they turned their companies around. And so, solar ended up looking really, really good for those situations. So I think that, I think the future is about educating more and better, getting even better at storytelling, like Caleb was asking me about, and getting it more in the masses. We've got to put more solar. The 2 coal plants in Arkansas are going away. That's not a question mark, that they are going away, and they can build a gas power plant to replace it, but they can also bring solar in, and they can bring solar into individual homes and businesses. And there's a way that the utilities can benefit from that, because if there's Powerwalls on there, then they can have agreements with the homeowners so they can access that power in power outages. That whole concept around microgridding that Elon Musk is testing down in Puerto Rico, since their whole grid got demolished. That's real. And we need to start thinking about it now. Texas has proved that.
Yeah,
Texas has one of the most diverse energy systems in the nation, and independent, and it imploded on them. And so with one weather event. And so it's not about the utilities are bad and solar's good, or solar's bad and utility's good. The thing is, there's this amazing technology out there. Figure out a way and blend it with, a grid that we need that grid to be strong. We want that grid to be strong. How do we help the utilities strengthen their grid through either microgridding or other things? And how do we work together to utilize this great technology? And frankly, how do we serve, in this state, Arkansans better by giving them access to all this amazing technology and at a great price and get ahead of the curve. And there's money to be made by the utilities. Solar is a great moneymaker for the utilities. It's a great future moneymaker for the utilities. It's a great moneymaker for a lot of industries here. That's why a lot of industries and cities and counties are investing in it. So I hope that we save the trees. I'm a big hiker. I love the outdoors, but we don't need to get caught up in that partisan messaging. The reality is this is great technology. It's technology that's just simply improving over time. It's going all over the world. And the great thing about it is we have the same access to that great technology here in Arkansas as they have in Dubai or Europe or anywhere in the world. And so Arkansans can take advantage of that today. And so how we get better at messaging that and get a bigger share of the market and get more raving fans around solar. I mean, that's really the future. And then adding different pieces to it into that ecosystem so that they see that there's a way.
Well, to your point about that is I was just sitting here thinking about reflecting on some of the concepts that come out of reliability engineering. And when you look at availability and reliability of any kind of system, a distributed network, which is a direction that we're kind of going with the grid, that's full mesh, which means your availability can be extremely high. A hub and spoke, where you've got the power centralized and then flowing out to a bunch of endpoints, you've got just a ton of single point failures. And so the resilience that a distributed network can have with distributed production, first of all, you also spread the cost and the expense. The power company doesn't have to bear that cost for the power generation. It just seems we're finally at a point where there's mass economies of scale, and it makes sense to do that. And if you add in the power walls for storage and larger battery storage, then all of a sudden the sort of unreliability in terms of the sun doesn't always shine and et cetera, goes away because you can store it. I mean, it's remarkable to hear the kind of uptake that you're getting, and people are starting to finally cash in on the idea that, whether they believe man-made climate change or not, this is making economic sense. And there's a certain element of resilience that you get from it. So that's so cool.
That is the key thing. We can argue climate change all day long, and I'll tell you, don't even go there. It's really about, do you love technology? Do you want the greatest technology? Do you want resiliency? Do you want security? Do you want independence? Do you want a great return on your investment? I mean, this is something you're putting on your home or your business. It's an asset, just like anything else. And do you want that or do you not? And just educating on how that happens. But the resiliency on the grid and the microgrid concept is one that I wish we've got to get over the hurdle of us and them, so that it can be a real discussion about how that works, because you need the utilities and you need solar provide and installers and designers like our firm,
sure,
to make all that work. But right now we're still in that us and them phase, and you're certainly seeing a little of that in the legislative session, and so we've got to get past that, and we've got to get to the point where we're really talking about how do we work together to really implement some mass change. Because the truth of the matter is, if you get into a dark alley with a utility engineer, they'll tell you our grid is old in this state. The grid is old across the nation, and we've got to do things to help make it more resilient. And that's true across the board. And so all we're saying is we believe that there's a piece of that puzzle that we can offer and that this industry can offer. Just, can we get in a room and talk about it? So I'm very hopeful for the future, but it feels like it's just been a slog to get there through this us-them thing. But I think that's, when people ask about it, I say, we're a disruptor. And I think we have to get past that and go, we're a disruptor industry. We understand that. But let's get past that, because we are a real viable industry as well. And we can add value and do add value.
Absolutely. Caleb, teeing you up for the plane landing here, buddy.
Yeah. So we just, looked in the future for a little bit. go back to looking back into the past, if you had the opportunity, given all the experiences you've gained and everything you know now, had an opportunity to go back in time to visit with your younger self, what advice might you give?
Did you see my meditation app? Because I think that was my meditation for today was go talk to my younger self and have it. So what would I tell her? David Russell, if he hears this, is going to love it. But I would tell her to breathe. Sometimes I forget to. I would tell her to relax. I would tell her to have more fun. I would tell her that the way that her brain works and her curiousness and the fact that she'd never met a stranger and the fact that she's very passionate and driven, that all those things would prove out someday. And it's all going to be okay. I think
That's
that's
good.
That's what I would tell.
That's good. No, it's great. Well, listen, this has been a fantastic conversation, and I think that the audience is going to learn a ton. And the one thing we haven't said yet, which I'm going to say publicly, is you were the Arkansas Business Executive of the Year this past year, and it's obvious to me why that was so well deserved. So congratulations again on that. I know that there's bigger and better things coming for Seal Solar, for that matter, for anything else that you are aspiring to do in the future. So you're an inspiration to all of our listeners, and best of luck with everything that comes next.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on.
It means so much coming from you, Jeff. Thank you. I'm just such a raving fan of yours and all the things that you guys are doing through Startup Junkies. So that means a lot. And I do so appreciate the opportunity. There is a little 5-year-old in me that goes, why would anybody want to talk to me? So it really is, it's really fun. And I especially love because it helps us to spotlight our industry, which is really, it's really amazing. The little engine that could, what's happening here in Arkansas. And so I hope that this inspires people to go do their own research on solar and battery storage and the grid and all of these things. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Have a fantastic weekend, and thanks again for coming on. We'll see you.
Thank you.
You bet.
Bye.